Yep. Just can't have any good news anymore.
Nope, not really. No.
So I had to throw a little tribute there in for Tina Turner because that's what happens when you start aging. Apparently, legends keep dying. That's what happens, David.
Well,
Anyway.
I mean, it's it's sometimes as you get older, it gets to the point where I've often thought about some of the people that we as a society honor. Sometimes it's probably better that they move on. I want to say it was Lincoln, but then again, I could be misquoting somebody. But like, you either die the hero or live to see yourself the villain.
That might have been Batman, but
that might have been Batman. I don't know. Hey,
anyway,
listen,
welcome
it's the
to
internet.
Brewing
Everything is Lincoln.
Oh, I'm here. I'm still Lucas. That's still David. And we still get together, talk about current events, drink some craft beer, use a lot of foul language, and say a bunch of funny shit that shouldn't be repeated in a safe for work environment. So if you've brought your sensitivities or your pearls, clutch them and get the fuck out.
Advisable.
So, outside of Tina Turner sadly leaving us, the other thing to start the show off with is welcome to the Thunderdome, motherfuckers, because DeSantis is in.
Oh God. Oh God. And his entire pitch, apparently the pitch he's been making behind the scenes is this: Trump can't win Georgia, Trump can't win Pennsylvania, Trump can't win Michigan, and Trump can't win Arizona. I can. But the only problem is the question DeSantis has got to ask is, can DeSantis, I mean, if DeSantis is at the top of the ticket, can DeSantis win North Carolina? Can DeSantis win Can DeSantis win Alabama? I mean, does Trump show up as a spoiler and barge in and take places like Alabama and Texas?
Let them have at each other. I finally get the thing that I've been working toward, to settle my mind, which is to sit like Caesar at the top of a coliseum while those two fucking twats beat the ever-loving shit out of each other as much as humanly possible and finish their uncoordinated quest to wreck the Republican Party beyond recognition. Olivia's here. If you're here, say hi. Feel free to jump in. I'm going to spend the whole election season maliciously pretending I've never heard of him in comments. I love that. That's a great idea. Love it. Anyway, feel free to say hi. This is the show, and this is the part of the show where we talk about a few things that are on our minds of late today. Obviously, the top one of those being DeSantis. That's been said. Other shit that got my attention today when I didn't have time to do anything. Russia apparently has a movement. That's neat. So maybe there's some people in Russia creating problems and possibly overthrowing some dumb shit.
Yep.
But David has brought us a nice, handy dandy list of hot takes for the Hot Take Happy Hour, because my Wednesday has basically consisted of a recreation of Indiana Jones hanging onto the back of a Nazi tank getting dragged through a desert. So I haven't been able to keep up with anything on time. Everything I wanted from the day has occurred, but after an interruption or an unforeseen delay, and things keep coming at me before I'm ready. And it's like I'm just chasing hump day all the way down the fucking highway.
I want to point out, I negotiated a schedule among 20 bar and restaurant employees today. If you think that I wasn't also being dragged by the tank, I have news for you, sir.
Yeah, David did a better job, apparently, managing his work life. My work life, all of the things were just way out of whack today, running behind. So David has brought us graciously a wonderful series of hot take opportunities, and I'm going to let him start that off, and I'm going to just chime in with wise ass additions, because I didn't bring anything to this table for this portion of the show.
So first off, hello, darkness, my old friend. We are yet again staring down the barrel of default, and I know we've talked about this on and off, over the past couple of weeks, as it's obviously become an issue, and it's going to become an issue. The worrying part is how nonchalant McCarthy is at this point. Normally, Republicans have normally been a lot more worried, scared about what's going on. I'm going to tell you, folks. I think they're going to do it this time. I think they're going to sit down. They are going to look at at that particular item and be like, anything is a dildo if you're brave enough, and sit right the fuck down on it.
Anything is a dildo if you're brave enough.
It's bad, folks. I don't think it's good. I think that they might be of a mind that this time they're going to go ahead and default. And just to give you an idea of how bad that would be, my estimation, my rough estimation, casually, day one of a default. In other words, the morning of, we are looking at about probably 45 million Americans being affected that day, directly, like in a very negative way. We lose airports, right? Because the TSA isn't on duty. Air traffic controllers aren't being paid, right?
So why? We'll give the why about that though, because people, because of these stupid ass analogies that leaders keep trying to use, people are really all over the place about what affects what and how.
So basically, here's what it is: the United States borrows money to pay for stuff.
We know how that works, but
yeah,
the linking between things like TSA, that's the piece that I don't think a lot of people like totally digest.
No,
because of the assholes on the other side that have conflated it with a lot of other complexities that people are also too stupid to generally understand.
Basically, if you're a federal employee, you officially aren't getting paid the day that we hit default, right? The TSA are federal employees. They're not getting paid. Air traffic controllers are federal employees. They're not getting paid. Your postal workers, everyone who delivers your mail, they're federal employees. They're not showing up either because they're not getting paid, which is fine if you collect Social Security because there is no more money in Social Security for them to pay you. So you lose your Social Security check automatically. All our ports shut down because there's no customs officials to clear goods through the ports. So that's all shut down. The entire United States military ceases to be paid. I want to point that out. That's kind of a big one. The FBI, no, they're not showing up because they're not getting paid.
Really, in a way of thinking, it links to rough equivalent of government shutdown.
Yeah, well, I mean, it isn't. It is a government shutdown, and it's not because of a budget. It's not because they can't decide what to pay them. It's the fact that there is no money to pay them. So this is bad. I mean, this is super bad, and that's day one. Day one is 45 million people by my estimation. By day two, we're looking closer to about 200 million Americans being directly impacted that day. So in the first 48 hours, 200 million Americans are being drastically negatively impacted by the default.
Yeah. Olivia points out he's trying to play the "look what Biden did" game, but
yeah, and the thing is, it's not true. Yeah, apparently Olivia's right. They are mentioning a credit downgrade, and that would also be catastrophically bad.
The credit downgrade isn't pretty. Also, Eric is here. Hello, Eric. I think his laughter definitely came before this part of the conversation, but I was busy editing my beer.
No, I mean, at this point, all you can do is laugh at how bad this is. This is comically, this is dark comedy at this point. Of really how bad this could be.
So I'm not quite sure, though, David, that I think it's. I don't know that I think it's an indication that he's ready to just drive the car over that cliff. I think there's a part of it that's his bizarre, aloof, disconnected. Because if you remember how he acted a lot during the speaker vote, he was a lot the same way. It's part of his game. It's part of the way that McCarthy goes about this shit, I think. And I'm not sure
No,
that we can really read anything with this motherfucker, because half the time during the one thing in the world he wanted more than anything, and he should have been stomping around the hallways like a petulant child, he still had the attitude about this same general attitude about him when it was the big job that he wanted. So I don't know if we can read him, but my big question for you, because I heard a lot of buzz about this, what is this iffy fucking amendment? Was it the 14th Amendment?
yeah, we talked about that last week, but I'll bring it up again. So basically, the 14th Amendment, it's a little bit weird, and it's kind of funny because it runs into an originalist. It's ironically progressives using an originalist argument. Before the Civil War,
Good.
states were allowed because there was no national bank, and the Treasury was basically just a place where the government put its taxes. States were allowed to mint their own money, right? Part of what the federal government did during the Civil War was say, no, we're going to have one national currency. This is a United States dollar. I'm going to pay the Union Army in United States dollars. And I'm going to pay my debts in United States dollars, right? And if you read a dollar bill, it says this is legal tender for all debts, public and private.
Mhm.
And then the 14th Amendment says, the United States government shall honor all its debts. In other words, it's setting up the idea that there is a national currency, right, that is usable to be paid for debts, and that the United States will repay those debts in this federal unified currency.
Brian's here. Aloha,
Hey,
Brian.
so the 14th Amendment, but if a literal reading of it just simply says the United States government shall honor its debts. In that instance, right? And I know Biden doesn't like it, and but I think it's time to go ahead and pull this ripcord, because I think that McCarthy is ready to drive the cliff. As using your analogy, I think he's ready to drive the car over the cliff. I think if, in order for him to preserve his power, I think if you're Matt Gaetz, if you're Marjorie Taylor Greene, if you're Ted Cruz, if you're Hawley, if you're these firebrand conservatives,
The nihilist club.
I think that he is so determined to hold on to power that he's backed into a corner where if he wants to hold on to power or has any hope, right, he has to crash the economy. I also think that it also betters Trump's chances for the next presidential election, right? I think the way they're looking at it is, well, Biden was the president, Trump lost because of COVID and a massive natural disasters. They're thinking on that moment. Well, if we create a disaster, right, which is the original, originally for my pet, which is also I'm going to touch on this a little. That was that was my title, which was "Disaster is the Point." If we create a disaster in the form of this debt default, we can potentially cripple Biden with this with the economic fallout of the United States defaulting on its debt. But I also want to point out, this isn't just like a minor thing. This would send ripples around the world. The Treasury bill, the T bill, right? Which is the actual instrument that people buy from us,
Yeah, right.
that contains our debt, right? That's the actual financial instrument. That's a global standard, right? Everyone knows that it's safe to put their money in a T-bill. I don't know if I can. I mean, there's all sorts of gamesmanship you can do about buying what are called samurai bonds, which is Japanese government debt. There's things about buying Chinese government debt, but they're not. People aren't normally as sanguine about that because the Chinese government is always looking at the people who buy its debt and be like, we can just tell you that it isn't real at any time we like. You know that, right?
Suckers.
And right, the Indian government is not really super stable. It's not, buy their debt, and the European countries whether or not France has another revolution at any given day, or the German government decides that it's going to collapse again and not be able to figure out how to pay people again, is always there. And same thing with the British.
Well,
Maybe.
asking you about economics is like asking some uncle at Thanksgiving about football history. So I'm going to rush you to one more
Yes.
question. Biden seemed to have doubt that anything like that could be pulled off in time, and
I think it can.
the constitutional angle would not work. But maybe that's kind of a bluff.
I think. Here's the thing. I think Biden has a lot of very smart people telling him, "Do it." And Biden, here's the one thing. I wish Biden would be in front of a camera every single goddamn day right now, being like, "This is what McCarthy wants to take away from you. This is what he's going to take away from you, you, and you." I want him to look at the camera and point at those people and say, "This is what he's taking away from you." This is not about spending, because if it was about spending, the U.S. government has to restrain itself, and progressives, and even the Pentagon, the goddamn Defense Department, the Pentagon showed up and said, "You know what? We have a lot of programs that we don't need anymore, and so it might be okay if cut our budget a little, because we've got we have money that we can't use." So this isn't about spending, really. This is about them trying to telegraph poor people are the enemy. The government is your enemy. Everyone's your enemy. Liberals are your enemy. Black people are your enemy. Trans people are your enemy. Gays and lesbians are your enemy. Foreigners are your enemy. They're all, unless you are a conservative, white evangelical, or conservative Roman Catholic. Everyone is your enemy. And we need to go punish those people.
Well, you know what? Let's use that 14th Amendment strategy just so that I can look at neighboring Ottawa County here in Michigan, which voted last night to become a constitutional county. And the only constitutional amendments they give a fuck about in this process are the 1st, 2nd, 5th, and 14th. Yeah, let's do that. And I'll just look at them and say, 14th Amendment, fuckers. And we'll just go from there. So, Target. Your next one on the list.
Yeah. I tried to find more ways to fit Target into there, and I'm like, I don't have time.
I think you ran out of. I don't know if there are any targeting, perhaps.
I tried to work in that adverb / gerund. I don't know. I'm forgetting my grammatical tools at this point.
Targets targeted. Anyway.
So Target is apparently kowtowing to threats of violence against them for having LGBTQ merchandise displayed during Pride.
Yeah.
They are not removing everything. They are removing some of what they some stuff that again, from the creators of it, is jokingly occult or satanic themed. Which again, if you all have ever read the missives of the actual Satanic Temple, it's all a joke. They are literally there just to fuck with people. They are a religious trolling organization. That is their job. That's what they do, and God love them for it. But I mean, I say this as a Christian. I love these guys. They're freaking fantastic. But it's just sad that Target has to sit there and.
I mean, I don't think they should do shit. I don't think they should. I would have liked to all about it. I would look at the rest of I would look at the naysayers and just
if they showed half the amount of spine to these people as they show when trying to keep unions out of their stores. I mean,
you said it. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And so Brian, I tried to walk into Target once, I missed. I never would have imagined before the Clinton years, in a very slim window of time where I understood society and politics enough to have an inkling, but before Monica Lewinsky, okay? In that very brief period of time between middle school and Monica blowing Bill. In that period of time, you couldn't have said, guess what? Your entire lifetime will be dedicated to the topic of how one side of the country is really obsessed with where people stick dicks. And when and how.
Well,
Like,
unless it's about,
there are plenty of problems on the left. Left
and
isn't perfect, but at least we don't go around worrying so fucking much about who fucks who with what implement and why.
Just to be clear, it's not about where everyone sticks their dick, because if you're a pastor, then they don't want to know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if you're a religious leader, because God, I mean, I always love, oh God, what's his name? The head of Liberty University, Falwell.
Oh,
and him sitting in the corner while the pool boy bangs his wife.
Earlier you said with your first hot take, you're talking about anything's a dildo if you're brave enough. And I think you could reverse that equation for the priests. Anything's a vagina if it's short enough. So basically,
but it's true. Oh, but it's true.
It hurts because it strikes so close.
I thought you were going to go somewhere else with that for a second.
No. I'm going to draw the line somewhere.
I don't know where that is, but apparently it might be somewhere over there. It's kind of vague.
So I really am disappointed in Target for that, because that's some pansy ass Bud Light bullshit, basically. And who knows?
Oh, I this is a slight aside. I'm going to make this a short hot take, but I read a financial analysis, because a lot of people have been telling me like, oh, Bud Light lost 25% of their market share doing this. And here was and there was an analysis, and they're like, listen, if it was just conservatives, they wouldn't have lost 25% of their market share. You wouldn't have even noted it.
Mm-hmm.
The problem was that first they pissed off conservatives by simply acknowledging that trans people existed. That pissed off that side. Then they tried to backtrack, which then pissed off liberals. So the problem is they managed to piss off everyone through their waffling, and that's why they lost 25% of their market share, because they're like, just like the Dodgers did. The Dodgers are now having to backtrack for their Pride event, because first they invited the Sisterhood of Perpetual Indulgence, which, by the way, I would like to point out is technically a religious order. Nashville actually has a chapter of the Sisterhood of Perpetual Indulgence. They all seem like very fine people. And for those of you who aren't familiar
on both sides,
they are gay men who dress up in very flagrant nun drag.
Yes,
I guess. And but they were originally founded as an organization as a hospitaler organization to provide hospice care to gay men dying of AIDS. And so they are definitely an honorable organization. And for the Dodgers first to invite them, and then for Ron DeSantis to say they're an insult to Catholicism, I'm just like, good.
Catholicism is an insult to Catholicism. Anyway,
no, Marco
Bud Light
Rubio
was on decline for years consistently before any of this shit touched off. They were fucking themselves. And also, I don't know if this is a unique anecdotal experience, but when I worked for a gay-owned company and we had lots of gay parties, I sure did have to cart around a lot of fucking Bud Light to put in the fucking ice barrels, because Bud Light was the official opening starter soda at any gay party I was ever present for. So they clearly had no understanding of who the fuck they were dealing with, and they definitely managed to piss off everybody. And I kind of hope Target gets a blowback that teaches them a similar lesson. Though I don't wish the same ruin on Target, because when it comes to retail, they're not equivalent to Bud Light. They're more like a Amber Bock.
Yeah, listen, and also listen. It's a long drive to the IKEA. I need Target to stay open.
Oh, yeah. Right. Is your next best bet in most of the country for knockoffs of IKEA styles is Walmart. No one wants to go there. We
No.
at least here we can do Meijer to fake out some of the things that are otherwise copyrighted.
Right.
So next up, they always tell you who they are. It's interesting that you would use this tonight to lead this topic off, but just last night I used that kind of phrasing, the Maya Angelou quote, actually, as the cover page to several screen caps from social media that I delivered to each of the commissioners in the commission meeting here in GR. Showing them the vile and reprehensible shit the white supremacist cop fluffers on Facebook in this community have been saying and doing, and then cap that off at the end with a couple of screenshots from the deputy chief's Facebook page, where one of his profile pictures, I shit you not, is pistol finger pointed at you, but he's totally appropriate to be a deputy chief in an over-policed community. That's fantastic. That's good stuff. So basically making that analogy. So what is your application of this famous statement?
So a group of conservative Christian radio hosts have sued to have a law not apply to them, specifically a law regarding hate speech.
Of course.
And see, here's the thing.
That tracks.
I'm a Christian. I even know plenty of conservative Catholic speakers and conservative Protestant speakers and conservative Muslim speakers and conservative Jewish speakers who I would find most of their thoughts disagreeable. But I wouldn't call it hate speech, right? And for the most part, I wouldn't call it hate speech. One of the arguments that keeps on coming up about why do Christian conservatives keep on backing a flagrant adulterer, criminal, rapist, all these things that Trump has done, all these things which should tell you not a very Christian or moral person, a guy who doesn't even have the faintest grasp of the Bible, right? Why would they continue to back this guy? Because it's not about religion.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things where all
Never
of a sudden
really
it's very obvious that these guys want to say racist things on their show and say, well, it's my religion, right? It's my religion. I mean, it's like the classic example of Bob Jones University. And for those who aren't familiar, Bob Jones University is one of the cultural touchstones of modern academic cultural conservatism. And they always say, oh, well, we founded the university in opposition to Roe v. Wade and them, allowing abortion, and we felt we had to strike back. Except the problem is they founded the university 7 years before Roe v. Wade and 2 years after Brown v. Board.
Yeah.
And they didn't even allow interracial dating, right, until the 1990s. I mean,
and wouldn't you love to be a fly on the wall for the stats regarding the sheer volume of abortions they created in their dorms?
Oh God. But I mean, it's one of the things that we keep on coming back to, which is that so much. And one of the points I make about people being like, oh, well, just let people have their religious, rules. One of the first arguments against Brown v. Board and against integration and against the Civil Rights Act was it violates my religion as a white conservative Christian to allow African Americans in my establishment. That was one of the first. There was a long case history of organizations trying to take this tact to exempt themselves from the Civil Rights Act. This is the problem is that so much of conservative Christianity in America is tied up in the idea that whites are God's chosen people.
Well,
right?
and it's just like I say so frequently, it's never about faith for these fucking people. It's about subjugation. It's about greed. It's about self-aggrandizing, centering the entire solar system, like fucking spinning around them. And whatever excuse necessary, which the excuse de jour typically is religion. So last but not least in the happy hour, conquered. We conquer.
So a lot has been made over the past few months of Ukraine's defense of Bakhmut. Slava Ukraini. And the fact that Bakhmut has apparently fallen to Wagner mercenaries this week. All of this sounds very, very bad. And a couple of things need to be pointed out, though. Ukraine bled Wagner white for them to take that city. And now Wagner is quickly leaving. Now, why is Wagner like this grand prize, right, for these Wagner mercenaries? Why are they getting out of Bakhmut so quickly and being like, hey, Russian regular military, you should come in and defend the city now? So the problem that the Ukrainians had was once they started to lose the outskirts of the city, that's when they had a big problem. And why was that a problem? Well, because Bakhmut actually sits in a depression, right? It's surrounded by hills. Or as we say here in Tennessee, a holler.
I love it.
And so now that the Ukrainians have pulled, and I want to point out, the Ukrainians didn't surrender Bakhmut; they pulled out of Bakhmut. So now there are a bunch of Russians stuck in a cauldron that now, even though the Ukrainians have pulled out of Bakhmut, they've moved around to the edges again and now control the heights around Bakhmut again. Which means now the position is reversed, only it's the Ukrainians firing down on them, not the Russians.
Yay.
So it's a little bit of a thing. There's also a couple of other things that, like, Lucas was talking at the beginning of the show about
internal strife.
Maybe it was on NPR, one or the other. I don't remember. They both sound the same in my head. Boring and sometimes dry. The Russian military or Russian irregulars loyal to the opposition have attacked the nearest Russian city to Ukraine, Belgorod, the other day with American weapons, which was a little bit unfortunate. But I mean, but even Wagner is now worried that with the losses, because here's the thing: the part of the reason that Wagner mercenaries pulled out of Bakhmut was because they knew if they stayed there, even more of them would die. So now the problem is they know that the Russian regulars that they are having take over control of the city are all going to die in Bakhmut. So there's been a sort of an op-ed put forward by Porozhkin, who's the owner of the Wagner mercenary organization, that the Russian military needs to do something quickly because the losses that are being sustained in Ukraine by the Russian military are going to piss people off. There's only so many times when they can look at the mothers and widows of dead Russian soldiers and say, that didn't really happen. He died in a training accident. Right? There's only so many
different. You have a lot of training accidents,
right?
And incidentally, your leaders keep falling out of stuff dead.
Yeah, so, literally. Jesus,
it's real weird.
If I were a Russian government official, I would build a house with absolutely no fucking windows,
right?
Ever.
You'd have to like constantly have I would say bring around a food and drink test intern, but you would go through them. Apparently, you'd have to have a stable of people who you can afford to filter your fucking consumables through, because I mean it's a shit show and I'm loving every minute of it. The more dead Russian operators, the better. And I hate to say that some of those people are the people that were forced into it, but you know what? By my calculations, you had most of my adult fucking life to get out, and you stayed. You're part of the shit show. So
yep. I mean, it's getting bad apparently in Russia when even Porozhkin is looking and saying, like, we're on the verge of an internal revolution, and what he's actually saying is,
we're gonna kill you, Putin.
Yeah, we're gonna kill you. We're gonna kill Putin, and we're gonna stage a coup, and we're gonna kill Putin. The fact that he's willing to say it out loud
Please,
is, I think,
please get on it.
Piroshkin thinks that he is in line to get something out of this.
Whatever.
I don't know what, but Anyway, it's going well, and on top of it, we're going to give the Ukrainians F-16s, so we can just do not Top Gun because he was flying an F-14, but the most versatile strike craft on the planet, and apparently a hell of a lot better than even the newer stuff the Russians have, because the Russians have been putting that stuff up and it keeps on falling out of the sky.
It's just so glorious to watch how much of it's just going totally fucked. And it's a great reason to drink. So it's time to review some beer, David. If you're here to hear about the beer, you've come to the right point in the show. It's time for What You Drinking. So who's first? You already ready? Did you already pour it?
I haven't poured it yet, but I wanted to show everyone the label first.
Oh, that's pretty. Hold on. Let's make sure that's nice and big so that people can see it.
It's just such a pretty
neat. I
design.
like the foil. The foil stamping on that is nice.
And
I am seeing a thing I would have done, though, to spend even more money, which would be to cut it low so that the horns could be above the label. That would be kind of rad.
Yeah, that would.
But that's my job. Like, my literal whole fucking living is made by taking things that could be fine and making them more expensive through design. So,
but I mean, so this is again one of those beers that it's. And I'm noticing a trend in a lot of brewers where they'll take a single designation of a beer and they'll just keep on tweaking it again and again and again. So there's multiple versions of this vanilla absentium, and I'm going to try not to have the overflow issue that I had last week.
Yeah, I need to
that
make
was
sure
intense.
I need to get some screen caps.
I'm still finding places where that beer exploded, because it just exploded out of the glass. It didn't explode out of the can; it exploded out of the glass, all over everything. And it's got a really solid head to it. It's oh wow, hey, yep, that's got alcohol in it. I know, I've smelled it before.
I just love that you're playing in my ballpark. You're in my neighborhood now, motherfucker. You got the barrel-aged fat kid dessert beer going on, and we both do tonight, so we're on a theme. But I'm so glad you are. I'm pre-pouring mine, so I don't have to wait on the. I don't have to wait on the head. Nobody likes to wait on the head.
That's good, but that has got that alcohol ester is on there. So a lot of there's two different ways you can get an alcohol ester in a beer. One is you can get one that's a little bit rubbing alcoholish, or a little bit it's too on the nose. It's alcohol, but it's not blended with anything. And that can happen a lot in beer. This tastes like it's blended with something. The vanilla comes through very nicely. It's got a chocolate kind of coffee moment in it. Okay. Maybe just a hint of raisin.
All right.
Yeah. No, that's a very solid beer. That is definitely a sipping beer. It will crush you.
So, but it's 10%, so it's high, but not like it could go higher.
It's not, but here's the thing. I've had 14% beers and been like, oh, okay, there's no big alcohol flavor to that.
Right.
This has, what it's like? It's like almost like a scotch kind of flavor. Okay. That's what I'm getting. Is like if I had a blended scotch that I adulterated with a vanilla bean while I was brewing it, and I feel like this is what and then I aged a beer in that. I feel like that's what you get. Obviously, what they did instead was they took vanilla and beer and put it in with the whiskey barrel. But I mean, if I were to reverse this process and be like, what would that whiskey taste like? It would taste like a vanilla whiskey.
Okay. Okay. I can see that. So decent amount of ratings on Untapped. Good high rating. Is it like? Do you think that it plays as well as that rating indicates? Do you think a large number of people are likely to jack this thing up into the force, or is it just a bunch of people like me that sought it out?
I'm gonna say it's. I mean, like I definitely sought it out because I was like, okay, Scofflaw is a solid organization.
Yeah.
In my opinion, they are very inconsistent with a lot of their product. I mean, they'll have like Boulevard. Boulevard will have like wow, like if you've had their Jester Double Vit, that's a fantastic beer.
Hmm.
And then I remember things like Spacewalk, where I was like, I think my dog would think that this was piss. Uh, uh, but and things like their Southwest IPA, where you're just sort of like, I mean, it showed up to the party. Yeah, but like, so Scofflaw does a lot of the same bits where like I like Scofflaw's IPA is definitely not something that I'm looking for in
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Right.
I'm not really looking for Scofflaw's lager or Scofflaw's you know, Vit or anything else. But again, like Boulevard, they seem to do pretty good with the high grabs. Uh, and when they get to experiment, I would say unless you're a beer nerd like us, this would probably be a bit much because it's got that big whiskey nose to it, and that like as you're drinking it, sometimes it'll have a nose and it won't have the flavor. As you're drinking it, though, that alcohol ester is hitting.
Okay.
It's not something that a lot of beers do. So here's the I mean, if you're a civilian beer drinker, I would not suggest this. If you're looking for something that, you know, you where you want to be like, okay, I want to have something that I'm going to sip and, you know, read something pretentious while I smoke my pipe, which is exactly things that I do. Uh, Lucas is like, yes, this is
Yeah.
literally things
It's
that David
true.
does.
It's true.
um,
Facts. Facts. And then he sends the links to whatever the fuck it is that it took him 3 hours to read to me,
yeah,
and
yep,
I'm
that's
supposed to
exactly what
review
happens.
them in all of my spare time.
Hey,
So
Lucas, have
yeah,
you
all
read this
right.
Atlantic article yet?
It's pulled up over here on my other screen, and it's the thing I didn't get to do before the show.
See?
So yeah, and it was supposed to be part of the background reading for some of the discussion tonight. So that's great. Anyway, well, I'm glad you're enjoying that one. I'm gonna pop over here and jump into mine. I finally went to Perrin Brewing in person. I've purchased Perrin in stores. They're located 10 or 15 minutes north of town here, so they would be considered local, but not in this immediate proper bubble of Grand Rapids that I tend to stick to on a lot of my local regular go-tos. And I've discovered a whole world of a lot of different great beer that they make up there, and they have a beautiful facility. It's a really nice place. It's enormous on the outside, and then not a lot of dining room for the total square footage. So I think it's a lot of production and not as
Good.
much,
Good.
Yes, good.
Good.
But for people that don't know, you got to plan ahead on a busy night because they do get busy and they do get a wait. But damn, the food was tasty. So got a lot going for them. And one of the things they have going for them is that one of their annual traditions is this Imperial Porter. Does it say Porter up there? Yeah, it does. Basically,
I'm not
um,
understanding the 2019 vintage malted milk ball 2017.
actually, hold on. I need to move the bullet. That's why I didn't see the porter in the description. I put it in the wrong fucking place. Da, 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 da. There we go. Lucas didn't put this in while David was talking earlier. So it's a Porter Imperial Double. They do it every year. This particular one is the 2019. They started it in 2017. So they
Okay,
consider it,
now I understand.
yeah, they consider the 2019 vintage of the 2017. This is always on the theme of the following design, which I think is pretty cool. They don't do the
The
this is not
ball with a crown.
this is not a foil stamp, but it is the sheen kind of style where the ink dulls it enough to make it look a little foily. I really like the effect there. I like the fact that the design's the same, but the colors change each year. And they had these on sale. So I was able to get like 4 of the fuckers, 2 of this year, so I could try one on the show. And then the other 2 years, and I don't remember which years I got. I think it might have been like 19, 20, 21 or 19, 21, 22 or what. But I've got 3 different years downstairs. And it happens to be one of the favorite beers of one of the group of guys that I know here, where we're trying to do a bottle swap movie night thing on a somewhat regular basis. So we're kicking around doing one maybe Monday, Memorial Day evening. And I got these 3 different years so we could do a vertical across the years on the Malted Milk Ball. And I'm hoping that we're going to watch Top Gun. So call the ball. Anyway, dad jokes about beer aside, I'm going to try this sucker in a big ass. I know. I said it. I said what I said. I'm going to try this sucker in a big ass stein. So
yours like my bottle like barely filled up mine. Yours is like,
well, I don't
our
know.
steins are the same size.
Yeah,
So
I don't know if the bottles are like what's the actual published size on your bottle?
500 milliliters.
Oh, for fuck's sake! You'll have to go translate that on your own. This one's 1 pint 6 ounces, so it's a hell of a lot of beer. It's actually more beer.
Yours
than
is more. I can tell you right
drinking.
now. I can do enough metric to customary conversion.
I also know within the next 45 seconds, Olivia, queen of food service and safety and science, is going to bust in here with the exact measurements of exactly what the fuck the translation is. But okay, so I've already tried this, so it's not a real first impression situation. But what I can tell you is people that know me are definitely going to know that this is going to hit for me, because this is where I play. This is the barrel aged fat kid dark desserty imperial double porter stouty world. Well,
fail.
All right, math is the only place with regard to food and drink that she's not gonna play. So the thing that I like about this, it has it's doing a little bit of the booze thing that you were talking about with yours. It has a it's almost like it's not nutty per se, but the cocoa nib portion of it kind of gets up front. It's like an earthiness up front, and I like that.
I mean, because there's a lot of different ways you could, like, the cocoa nib can come through. It can either come through as like straight chocolate, or it can come through as kind of dirt, or it can come through with a little bit of like coffee, kind of flavor,
dirt touch to it, a bit of coffee. The way they describe it is deconstructing the flavor profile of a malted milk ball to create a malt beverage brewed with lactose and spice with vanilla and cocoa nibs, then laid down to age for 9 months in oak bourbon barrels. And the barrel comes through in this a lot, which is something I really liked. And of course, it's something I always like, but like, that's how to win with me. Give me a barrel age that I can also say, aha, barrel. The thing that I noticed this in the tap room, and I was not sure how this would go between tap and bottle. It's neat that they call it malted milk ball, but I feel like that's more of an inspiration to the flavor than handing this to somebody and asking them, what's that taste like? And they go, malted milk ball. No, you won't do that. It's like they said, deconstructing those flavors.
Yeah.
But I've now had this 3 times in 3 different ways. I've had it out of the, the ramshackle setup you get at a beer festival where they're running kegs through a cooler and all that kind of stuff.
God bless them.
Yeah, I know, right? That's God's work.
Yeah, so, for those of you who don't know how hard it is to maintain the flavor of a beer in that setup, it's not enjoyable.
So I've tried it at a beer festival. I've tried it, in the tap room, real fresh, right off tap, and now in a bottle. And it's been consistent. It's been good. I see why it is a favorite of some of the people that I've talked to. It does have a little spiciness to it, which is interesting to me. I'm typically more on the sweet side, but there is a little bit of a spice bite going on. It's not like a peppery bite. It's not like a jalapeno porter or something. But no, I dig it.
Oh God, that would be delicious.
I like
Why
it.
don't more people make those? Damn
I
it!
don't know. The best time I've ever had with a jalapeno based anything beer wise was the smoked jalapeno porter at Cool Springs
I
Brewery in Nashville.
I
It was so
fundamentally need Gypsy Circus to bring back Nashville hot chicken cider,
yeah.
because it's habanero infused cider, and it is God's gift to everything. Like, it hurts.
Yeah.
You drink it and it burns like habanero. It's so good. It is so good. I'm not like a spice fiend, but I like spicy things. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where you're just like, this is so, it's sweet and hurts.
Well, this is definitely 12%. It's definitely a hitter. Definitely a bigger portion than I really promised myself that I'd be drinking when I converted to doing one beer on the show instead of two for doctor promised health reasons. So tonight is a cheat day, apparently. But that's what hump days are for. Now, let's pivot briefly before we jump into David's pet topic, because
There
Brian
we
always
go.
comes to us with a little of his own goodies, and we try to highlight that as good Americans should. So, Brian's got tonight pineapple upside down cake, frighteningly strong sativa that lingers on the tongue and in the medulla oblongata. It's tested at a whopping 30% THC, not for amateurs, folk singers, or people from Wyoming. Yeehaw! And Brian,
I want to know what the Wyoming. I'm wondering what the Wyoming crack is about, because I'm thinking like,
boring, not for boring people. I don't know. I would think you'd have
yeah,
to
you
smoke
know
a
what?
lot of weed to make
That was from Wyoming. I can see that.
Wyoming interesting, but
There
you know,
is. I'm going to be honest. Besides Yosemite, there is, or Yellowstone rather, there is nothing that interesting
all the
in
more
Wyoming.
reason.
There's a really cool milkshake place in Laramie. That's about it.
Okay, that's for
Yeah.
after. That's for after the pineapple upside down cake. Anyway, as always, thanks, Brian, for throwing in on that. We like to feature all of our vices equally, and also it just gives me pleasure to broadcast weed information all over a country that can't get its shit together while drinking a substance that is entirely following the same stupidity of prohibition in its history. So there we go. David, it's time for you to raise a little hell about a
Oh.
very interesting take on the disposition of the GQP.
So
So you set this up, and I got enough of the drift to really start to like roll this around in my head. A couple days ago, he brought this up, and I was like, huh.
and he had to remind me of like all the things I brought up, because like so many things happened in the
Yeah,
interim.
so I
I
came to the
tried
show
to.
like ready with all these thoughts, and he's like, "What was the topic I wanted?" I'm like, "Oh God!" And so we've got him back on track, and I want
Yeah.
you to set this thing up so we can knock it around.
So I mean, one of the things, and what prompted this topic was it was an Atlantic article about the state of the British Conservative Party. Now, for those who aren't familiar with British politics right now, the Conservative Party is in power, right? Uh, they they are the ones who hold the majority of Parliament. They hold the prime ministership. Uh, and they did all the, like, over the past few years, they have used their control of British government to do all these very conservative things. They backed the UK out of Brexit. They managed to do all these fundamentally stupid things, but they got them right. They got exactly what they asked for. But the problem is, and this was what the author was noting, it's like he went to this conservative conference and everyone acted as if they lost. Yes, John, we will post the article. I will do that for you. I will post the Atlantic article for you.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah. In fact, I let me do that because you sent it to me in Apple News. A lot of several of the people I know tend to send stuff through Apple News, which is fine, but
I
not
mean,
everybody rolls with Apple News.
yeah.
So let me copy that. I'll get a real link and we will throw it right in there in the comments.
But I mean, what was interesting was how the author was talking about how the conservatives basically have gotten almost everything they wanted, but everyone was still acting like they'd lost. And it got me thinking, and I got into a conversation recently about uh, how we also see that play out in America and how we're seeing that play out right now. And there's actually a tie into the debt ceiling as well, which is there is this sense in conservatism, I think, of we're going to lose. We're going to lose, and it's valid, right? Because if you look at the realities of what conservatism is offering right now, they should lose. They're not offering solutions to economic issues. They're not offering solutions to social issues. They're not offering solutions to anything. What they're offering, generally speaking, is uh, grievances, right? As I put it to one person, I said, they are looking for emotional validation, not a mandate to govern.
The grousing party.
Exactly. I mean, it's something that I touch on every now and then when I'm speaking about the topic. When I call it the democratization of feeling. I feel something, therefore it must be.
One of my
And
favorites of your political theories.
and it has become this. And like, look at Florida, right? How does Florida end up being Florida? How does a state, arguably as large as Florida, as dependent upon trade and economic progress,
Yeah.
and a very diverse population,
Not
end
to
up being
mention
so?
an enormous corporate entity that is the largest taxpayer, that for some reason they feel like walking by and nut thumping any chance they get.
Right? Why do we end up with this? And the truth is because it's not, modern conservatism is not a political philosophy. It's not. I think that's where I think the author of this couldn't quite get there. The author of this Atlantic article couldn't quite get there. It's that it's not a political philosophy, but it's being applied to politics. This is a philosophical point in their minds uh, of I would argue some a version of uh, grounded neo-nihilism
Mm.
of everything's wrong, everything is going to be wrong, and I want things to stay the same while they break.
Oh, God.
Because there's no argument, like
That's a really good way to put that.
there's no legitimate argument about, for instance, supply side economics doesn't work. We have decades of data that shows that it doesn't work. We know that a confrontational foreign policy with allies is not beneficial to us. Look at what we've been able to accomplish in Ukraine, defending Ukraine from Russia with a cooperative policy, not sometimes leaning on people like, hey, Germany, helmets are not enough. We're going to have to show up with stuff. And look how other people responded. Finland responded. Finland said, oh, look at that. You're going to defend your neighbors. I want to be part of that. Sweden, always neutral. Sweden, who couldn't be bothered to pick up so much as a pebble and throw it at the worst mass murderer in human history, while he was executing Jews just across that little Baltic lake, is even like, okay, all right, I get this. So we know it doesn't work in foreign policy. We know it doesn't work in economics and in social philosophy. Looking around, being like, listen, gay people and trans people exist. They're not going away. Just because you don't want to talk about them doesn't mean they stop being there. Black people.
I like what Brian says here about the superpower of shamelessness. And it kind of fits into my frequent argument that the left lacks balls, spine, guts. I use different terms depending on where I'm at, because I know that for whatever reason, we have this trend of being offended by genderized terms. but men are supposed to accept being called anuses when we're mean. So basically,
I mean, it could be anuses. They can be anuses.
well, I'm saying assholes. Like, you rarely call a woman an asshole. Asshole is
Well,
like
Jesus
by
Christ, dude! I
nature.
call women assholes all the time.
Yeah, but
I
you're
work
you.
I work with assholes. I work. There are at least 3 women that I work with on a daily basis who I will look at point
You're
blank
an
and be like,
asshole.
"You're an asshole."
That's amazing. So like it figures into that spinelessness thing. Like, the extremity of the right is shamelessness. The extremity of the left is spinelessness. And it's so interesting to me to see, and I'll walk around and ask, like, in leftist circles, like, look, I just would like us to have a little guts, aka shamelessness. They are so shameless about their cracked out crazy fucking bullshit, and we're not shameless about any
Oh,
principle.
no, I mean, look at what happened in one Florida school district this week. The
John,
inaugural.
by the way, John's here. Hi, John. I don't know if John's
Hi,
been lurked before and not said hello, but
John.
I've met John a couple times. Great dude. Glad to have him involved in the comment pool. And as asshole is technically a universal term, even though
Everyone has one. Probably. I mean, I assume there might be people with certain congenital birth defects. At which point,
I mean,
yeah. But
there still has to be a hole
eventually, yes. Eventually,
somewhere.
I guess. But I mean, whether or not it's surgically or natural, it's fine. You have a trans asshole.
You know what? You know what? It's okay, David. If you have a lack of an asshole or one that doesn't work, and you have to have some other means of dispensing with your bodily waste, it's cool because you get to go to the front of the line at Kid Rock's Honky Tonk so you can whirl it on the fucking dance
Oh
floor.
God, that is. Oh God, it's so true. But for those of you who don't know, that actually happened. Some guy with a colostomy bag decided to rip it off and shower everyone in
It
his
was
shit.
another one of those 2020 bingo card fucking moments when we were all sitting around in Nash Vegas and the headlines come up: man arrested for whirling colostomy bag on dance floor at Kid Rock's big ass honky tonk.
I
And
also want to clarify: no one. This is gospel truth for everyone who works downtown, like I do in the Nashville hospitality industry. No one who works. The only reason you work there is because you can make $1,000 a night. Now you can make $1,000 a night at my place too, but it's not as frequent as you can make $1,000 a night as a bartender there at Kid Rock, and that's mostly because they just pack them in like sardines, and
it's like the redneck version of a Japanese Subway. It really is, with drinks.
It really is,
and shitty cover bands.
Yeah.
So,
oh God, they're so bad.
I mean,
I'm
like,
so glad I work at a place with good
by
ones.
the time that headline came around, not a single like, normally, I left my phone downstairs, so I don't have the phone as a prop, so I'm gonna be old fashioned. You look at the headline and be like, whoa. And in 2020, when this happened, all of us were like,
Yep, Kid Rock. Okay, there we go. Moving on. But getting back to the point, even when conservatives get what they want, it's never the right thing somehow. I mean, if you look at America right now, look at the abortion bans, right? So they have their abortion bans, but they're not. They're not right, are they? Somehow, each one of these abortion bans it isn't the correct kind. Somehow, we haven't won yet. Because it's not about winning for them. It's not about achieving the objective. It's about feeling marginalized. Even though no one is marginalizing them,
they
except
need
for
to
the
be
fact
victims.
that they're assholes. I mean,
They
this is
need to
the
be
thing:
victims.
is what
They
what
need
they
to be
want.
victims of their own epic tragedy.
I mean, this is the party of the Karen. At the end of the day, it is the party of the woman, of the Karen and the Chad, of the woman and the man who have received basically everything society promised that they deliver. Right? Here's a decent job. Here's a decent house. Here's an okay car. Here's enough for you to live comfortably, but it's not right somehow because it's not Donald Trump. It's not. I don't have a golden toilet to shit in.
Mm.
Or a golden colostomy bag, as the case may be. I don't know. Um, we're not letting that go. We're just going to keep on
Never
going.
before have I been part of a conversation that took so many careful measures to not be ableist toward those who can't shit. It is truly a fascinating place to be.
But I mean, this is the thing: is they never quite get there, do they? It's never quite enough, and this has become the truth of, this is one of the things about fascism, about most extreme ideologies, even communism kept on running into the same problem of, well, the workers aren't free enough.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
how do we make them more free? Well, the state needs more control to make them more free.
You know what?
Again,
What this really analogizes to for me, and it's kind of funny because it's a redneck sport, or generally regarded as a redneck sport. I do have a soft spot in my southern soul for the reality that things that we consider, redneck motorsports do have an element of know-how and execution to them, but there was
NASCAR. Please tell me NASCAR.
Occasionally I succumb to the bullshit reels that Facebook throws at me. And there was one where the caption was, "Just stop, dude." And it was a tractor pull with this like giant fucking like pickup truck. And the person got stuck. And then they just decided to go for it, and the truck did not move. And then the engine bursts into flame and blows panels off the.
Oh yeah,
truck.
I remember that.
That to me is the animated GIF of the Republican Party.
I think that might have been Mule Day.
Could have been, but it's like,
for those who aren't familiar, there's a nearby community very famous for its Mule Day celebration.
Well, because they're very famous for literally all the mules.
Yeah, yeah.
But like that was like when I saw that image, I was like, this is kind of the Republican Party represented.
But again, it's this aspect of their existence, and this is one of the reasons why, again, I think McCarthy may be willing to continue the analogy and to repeat it again, send the car over the cliff. Is you keep on backing yourself. As a governing philosophy, it doesn't work, right? It's a protest philosophy. It is an argument against modernity. It is an argument against anything that isn't firmly tied to a 16th, 17th century view of the world and how it works. It is this idea. One of the newer sort of TikTok, sort of Instagram prophets of conservatism is this guy called Bronze Age Pervert, and he has this whole thing about women are actually fundamentally inferior, going all the way back to this ain't now what we would consider ancient style misogyny of women are just fundamentally inferior. Really, and I would point out, funny enough, the conservative gay movement is something that is out there of we shouldn't be having sex with women except to procreate. Really, like the only true equality in any sort of conjugal relationship is between men. That is a thing that's out there. It's very much out there. Gay Nazis are very much a thing. And the reason they're gay Nazis is because women are inherently inferior. We shouldn't need to have them, but we do. And the only true equality is between men. And so that's, who you should prefer to have sex with. If you're actually enjoying yourself. Well, no, I mean,
really?
Some people pointed out Andrew Tate and his philosophy, because Andrew Tate has repeatedly made this comment of, well, sex isn't that much fun. It's only really like the first 10 seconds and the last 10 seconds. And I'm just like,
you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, but you're really doing it wrong. For a guy who's like, oh, I'm such a player. I sleep with all these hot women. I'm like,
And I'm saying you're doing it wrong, like just universally. Like it doesn't matter like who you're into fucking.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But some people pointed out, like, I think Andrew Tate is making an argument that sex with men is better. And if you
They're
read
not
some of his
wrong
stuff,
by
it
that
really does
assessment.
start to sound a little bit like Andrew Tate and some of these, hyper conservative, hyper misogynist men are saying, like, no, yeah, you should be having sex with men.
Huh.
But again, obviously you can't sustain a civilization on raw homosexuality. Not even the Greeks did that really. And even though we like to point at them and be like, ha ha, y'all a bunch of little kid fuckers and you're weird and shit. In reality, that's not really how Greek society worked. It's just an aspect of Greek society cranked up to 11 for our pervy viewing of look at those Greeks. The entirety of the situation, however, it
Look
keeps
at
on
them.
coming back
Look
to
at
this
them
idea that
go.
no matter what you get, even when they're in power, here's the thing: McCarthy is in the House of Representatives. He could ask for reasonable things. He could he could look at Biden and be like, "Hey, listen, what I want is like if he had just come to Biden and said, I want a work requirement for Medicare." That would be awful. That'd be terrible. That's vile and disgusting. And it's horrible. But he might have gotten away with it, right? If he had just come to Biden and been like, hey, I want you to cut 25% of food stamps and like 25% of all these things and,
Yeah.
and done it like in all these other places, he could have gotten away with that. But no, that's not what he wanted. He wanted something that he knows
Fuck these
is
people is what he
impossible.
wanted.
What?
Fuck these people is what he wanted, or nothing.
Yeah,
Fuck them or nothing.
exactly. And and that's one of the reasons why I now worry that that's where we're actually headed is for an open default. It's because more and more and more, just like they keep on wanting to ban books, right? This is the 21st fucking century.
Yeah.
People can go online and read books. The fact that a Florida school district banned the inaugural speech,
Oh, I saw that.
or
I
not the
saw
inaugural
that.
speech, pardon me, the poem
The poem.
that was part
Yeah.
of the inaugural. Someone registered a complaint against another poet, and first of all, they didn't even get in Florida.
My
They
feelings.
they didn't even get the author's name right. They assumed the author was Oprah Winfrey because they knew the author was a black woman, so they assumed it was Oprah Winfrey. And then they cited
Some of these fucking trash only know, of one black woman, and that's
they
the
cited
one.
2 pages of like, oh, this is what offended me. It's literally contains no discussion of race, no discussion of anything. It's literally discussion of dreams, like little sleeping dreams. Not like,
David,
oh, I have a dream that I would do this.
poetry by nature requires a certain level of intellect, which means there's a group that comes to the table without some of the equipment to interpret it. I think this is a great time for me to deploy the element that I just worked in the background while you were talking to see if we could incorporate. And there it is, ladies
There
and
it is.
gentlemen. There it fucking is. So since we're going to need this apparently over the next several months, I decided, we're going to need a Bugs Bunny loop. So Brian, our native, or not native, I wouldn't curse him with that. Our resident Floridian, our resident Florida man. There you go. This one's for you, buddy. Just an endless loop of handling.
Hey, at least you get more tropical weather. A lot more flooding. It will eventually flood. I mean, there's always my argument about Florida, which is eventually, given global warming, we won't even have to worry about it because.
I saw this. I saw a report on NBC through my YouTube lunchtime bullshit, and they were talking about Florida and Texas having huge growth, and California having shrinking population. And of course, all I thought about was like, oh, the conservatives are going to make hay out of this. But like all the people they interviewed weren't those kinds of fuckers, but they had relocated for various reasons. And I was really disappointed in them for not asking these people. Like, they interviewed a whole bunch of minority families in Florida. And it's like, why don't you ask them about how they reconcile their savings and taxes versus the pending total subjugation of them at the hands of the maniacal state government?
Oh, no. Well, because Idaho is already afraid of what's happening to it, which is like, oh, we're afraid of all these Californians moving into our community, making it more liberal, which, again,
It could be that. It could be insurrection by migration, which I'm totally fucking for.
A slight aside,
As a person participating in something
I had great fun going through this website the other day. So for those of you who aren't familiar, there's been a movement in Eastern Oregon to create the so-called Greater Idaho movement of Eastern Oregon joining Idaho. Right.
But do you have potatoes, sir? Because
they have broccoli. They have broccoli.
Fuck broccoli. You don't get to be any kind of honorary fucking Idaho anything if you don't bring potatoes.
But here's the fun part: is now a group in Western Idaho. And for those who don't understand, Eastern Oregon is very liberal. Western Oregon is very conservative. Eastern Idaho, on the other hand, is a bit more liberal than the rest of the state. And so now a group calling itself Greater Oregon has argued that really what needs to happen is that Eastern Idaho needs to be absorbed by Oregon. So for the Greater Idaho movement is now been matched by the Greater Oregon movement.
I mean, they could just agree to straighten. I'm looking at a map right now. They could just agree to like straighten out that border. It's like the only place where it's not a straight line. I'm sure there's
we're talking about reason. Like a third of like there's a third of Oregon wants to be like, Portland and Eugene are too liberal. We want to join Idaho, but the problem is that Boise and all these surrounding communities are like, we'd rather join Oregon.
If you're zoomed out to like about midway on the U.S. view on a Google map, you can pretty much draw what you just described by looking for places that have dots with names next to them and places that fucking don't.
Damn.
That's pretty much exactly how it breaks down. Like everything you just described is places with shit that has a name that you could see from space in the map view. So, yeah. But you're very right. I think you have nailed it with this whole like Republican victim complex. It's almost like going to a dinner. If government was a dinner with that person that actually has no medical proof that they're gluten-free.
Oh God,
but they just need to be the center of fucking attention and have all the problems.
I hate that. I know people who are gluten intolerant and they benefit from not having gluten. And actually, they taught me some stuff. Like, for instance, I used to get really bad eczema on my hands. And then I learned, using liquid soap for some reason for me doesn't work. So now I only use bar soap. And whatever they're putting in liquid soap to what the process called saponification. Yes, that is an actual scientific term. To liquefy, the base elements for saponification, that doesn't agree with me, right? So I just use bar soap, and it worked, and my eczema stopped. And I listened to them how they
black and charcoal infused.
Oh yeah, he's like, you have the most goth soap ever.
His whole fucking bathroom is goth. When I went to Nashville in August 2021. I stayed with David, and his whole bathroom, it's like goth night. He's got fucking black ass fucking Tom's toothpaste, goth infused,
Charcoal infused.
charcoal infused. He's got like, I think you had a black toothbrush, which now I have a black toothbrush because of your bad influence. And you know, I started looking around like there's a theme in here. It's charcoal every fucking thing. Like I'm waiting for you to tell me in like 5 years, like I gotta get a new sink. It's turning black. Like, well, there's a reason. So I was surprised the toilet paper was white. Actually, I expected some charcoal infused toilet paper. Anyway, speaking of dark colored items in spaces they shouldn't be, let's talk about guns in the schools. So here's what had happened was,
I'm not gonna lie, that wasn't the best segue.
I tried. I am 75% of the way through probably the first pint of this 1 pint 6 ounce fucking malted milk ball 12%er. So I'm gonna do what I can. So what had happened was that at some point when I was super incensed about the bullshit here in Grand Rapids regarding guns being found in 4 schools, I told David angrily in a text, like, the main topic's going to have to be guns in schools, damn it, because I have to talk about this. But then we needed to kick it down the road last week. I forgot why.
Because you weren't here for most of it, and everyone got to watch me badly tread water.
That was
so
it.
much of the show.
I had to miss. I wasn't sure when I could get to the show because it was the first real like inaugural formational meeting of our Kent County Progressive Caucus, and I wasn't willing to miss that overall long-term political goal for this short-term political activism that we do here, which I'm very proud of and glad to do. But you know, anyway. John was in one of the lockdown. That is interesting. Feel free to drop another comment and tell us what you're talking about there, because I'm interested in that. So you'll be interested in this topic, I'm sure, John, and thank you for being here for it. So I was all worked up and pissed about it, and told David what was going on, and I'll get into that. But like, we bumped it to this week, and then this morning I realized, we bumped guns in schools to the Uvalde anniversary.
Now, first of all, I want to be very clear, because the Uvalde parents have asked everyone to please not call it an anniversary. They've asked it to be a 1-year marker. And the reason they've asked everyone to not honor it as an anniversary is because they said, from their perspective, an anniversary is something to celebrate.
That's a good point.
And commemorate. They're like, no, this is not something to celebrate or commemorate. This is something to that is a terrible tragedy for themselves and their community.
Right.
So
here's what's fucked up. Let's knock the Uvalde thing off this ever-growing list of school gun issues, because it's the one that we don't need to retread. But it is a year. David brings up an excellent angle from those folks, and I'm glad. And what I was most struck by this morning when I was taking my morning walk, listening to NPR, was the sheer volume of parents that are demanding information. What is that? What you got there?
This is a newer brewery that I'm just getting from Reds, Garden Path. It's apparently a fermentation collective, is how they're calling themselves. Yes, that does sound terribly liberal, and it probably is. This is Ron's.
It's not that it sounds liberal. It sounds like nerdy as fuck. Like
it is. This is Ron's Not Bitter. This is I don't know what they're calling this, a can-conditioned native yeast bitter or not. And
it sounds like a group of people that had trouble getting an actual beer license.
It's entirely possible.
Can we think of a lot of other ways to refer to the concept of being a brewery? Is there any other terminology that we could use here that would confuse the buffoons that run our county?
Burlington, Washington. Okay, that explains so much.
Oh, never mind. It's all perfectly on brand now. Never mind. Nope. It tracks 100% on message.
I'm like, you produced a beautiful farmhouse ale.
Good for them.
But there's nothing bitter about this. Ron's not bitter, or is he? I don't know.
Well, shut up and stick it in your mouth, because I was talking about sad parents and you interrupted me. So the parents in Uvalde are asking for details that It's just so fucking over the line. These people are even having to have this conversation where they are asking for the details so they can understand which children had to suffer slowly and die. That's fucking wrong. It's absolutely unacceptable if
Well,
that's the conversation being had. And of course, it's because of the ineptitude, cowardice, and cover up going on in Texas with regard to this particular shooting incident. And I hope these people get all the information and all the closure that they need. And it's really ridiculous. I didn't realize it had been a year until I heard the news this morning. And it's
yeah.
like, what the fuck, man? These slime balls, these
Well,
pansy
you know why
ass,
they don't want to.
disorganized whack jobs
You know why
that
they don't
we're
want to talk
supposed to
about it
trust
though.
with safety. They don't want to say anything.
You know why they don't want to talk about it, though, right?
I mean, there's 1,000 reasons, but
All right. So this is one of my arguments constantly that I have to remind people of. If you get shot with a 9mm, it's bad. It's not good.
I see what you're going for. Yeah.
If you get shot in the head with a 22 caliber rifle, it's bad. It's really bad. But ironically, you could, depending on the range and the type of gun and everything else involved, possibly even survivable to be shot in the head with a 22 caliber. When you get shot with a AR-15, right? The thing that you have to understand about what an AR-15 does, and the Russians actually tried to argue this before the Geneva Convention about the AR-15 as it was designed, slash the M16 as it was designed, was against the rules of war. Is this: when you fire an M16 after a not too long of a distance, the bullet begins to tumble. So normally when you expect a bullet to go like that, right? It goes straight. And that's under the Geneva Conventions, that's what's supposed to happen. The bullet's supposed to go straight. The reason these parents have questions is because their children were shot with an AR-15. It doesn't take that long for the bullet of an AR-15 to start wobbling. Right? And one of the things that happens is when you have an object traveling at many times the speed of sound and it's wobbling, is one of the advantages of the M16 AR-15 is that when it hits an unarmored target, is that it makes a wound tract, right? That is consistent with that wobble. It's going to make a bigger wound tract. So when you get shot with an AK-47, if it's a military issue with a full metal jacket round, it's going to go straight, right? It's going to go straight. But that M16, even with a full metal jacket military round, it's going to wobble, and so it creates a bigger wound tract. So where someone could be shot with an AK-47 at not insignificant range, they have a decent chance of survival. And why do they have a decent chance of survival? Because even though the kinetic energy of that bullet is going to make a bigger hole out the back, right? Little tiny hole in the front, bigger hole in the back, not good. But when you get shot with an AR-15 or M16 in a non-vital place, right? There's a high likelihood of bleeding out. And why is there a high likelihood of bleeding out? Because it tumbled, and therefore it transferred more kinetic energy as the bullet travels through the target. The longer it's in the target, the more kinetic energy it's transferring to the target. And so the problem
here you are
is
talking science and physics, and you're already demonstrating exactly why these gun nut fucking gun fetish whack jobs don't want to wrap their head about.
No,
They don't
that's the
deal
problem.
in facts. They don't
Is
deal in
that
science.
the reason these parents want to know is because it's very likely many of those children survive, like depending on if you just spray a room with an AR-15, it's very likely many of those children survived the initial shot.
Right, exactly.
And they sat there waiting for the Uvalde Police Department to save them. And here's the thing, even if they'd gotten there, it's very likely most of them would have still died from the
and
amount
don't
of
forget,
trauma.
not necessarily Uvalde Police Department, but the way this ties into my topic of choice, Uvalde schools. police
Uvalde had their own
department.
special schools department. But I mean, one of the reason these parents are upset is because it's very likely that many of the children survived the initial shot and waiting for the chance that maybe they could be saved,
Waiting
and
for
they
these
died bleeding out on the floor because, again,
pathetic cowards.
a shot from an AR-15 is substantially more deadly, even with that full metal jacket, which that's assuming that most of these shooters are using a full metal jacket. A lot of them aren't, which means that the bullet is very likely shedding as it's passing through the target. And what that means when the bullet is shedding, it means that pieces of it are falling off as it with an AR-15. Pieces of it are falling off. Again, when you shoot someone
Oh.
with a 9mm or a 45 or a 357, it's bad.
So here's where we pull Nashville in, because the things to knock off of this so that Lucas can get into his Grand Rapids rat hole on this. Uvalde. And let's link it to Nashville real quick. And this is the part where, when I look at the number of viewers, the collective number of viewers that we get to see is different from what people see on any platform. We get to see all the data live while we do this.
Yeah.
So I have reason to believe that people that are not people I know who watch silently and don't comment. I know people. I know who they are. I know they're here. People who do comment. And then there's the mystery number. And that's those people. Those people. Hi, hey, hi, hey, you. What's up?
Oh,
Those
hey, you
are
just
the
blue
people
shifted.
that are here to troll. They're here to collect what they hope will be damning personal defamation fodder. And those are the people that think that Lucas never praises cops. So now we're going to talk about Nashville, because unlike in Uvalde, Nashville showed up, decided, this is what we do. This is what we're trained to do. We're going to go in here. We're going to blow this motherfucker's fucking head off before they fuck anything else up. And we're going to handle our business. And they did the job that they are paid to do. And the job that was not goddamn funded by the fucking church school that they went to save.
And I also want to point out one other fact that keeps on getting looked over by the Covenant massacre is this. There were armed teachers in the school, and they were about as useful as,
tits on a boar. Tits on a boar. Go for tits on a boar. I love that one.
I'll go for tits on a boar. Hey, I'll go for door number 2, tits on a boar. There we go.
So, I have always openly praised the Nashville response to the Covenant shooting. I have also always reminded people that it was the publicly funded police that saved the day, the publicly funded fucking fire department that responded, and the publicly funded metropolitan Nashville schools buses that showed up to provide shelter and refuge to the terrified children that we see in the photographs. It's important to identify those things because these fucking pricks at this religious school that probably created the mental health abuse that manufactured the shooter, these fuckers never paid any taxes to support any of the systems that saved their asses that day. And you say, but the church is fighting the release of information from the shooter's writings. And there's only one fucking reason that they would do that. Because it incriminates their style.
We already know that. Here's the thing, and I pointed this out after the shooting. Covenant School has already been implicated multiple times in employing people with a history of pedestry.
That could be an angle.
Yeah, there's several people closely tied to the school have repeatedly been, some of them have been convicted of sexual assault on minors, which again, like we said earlier about conservative Christians and where they care about penises, they care about where penises go everywhere except if they're kids. So
I think we've been pretty consistent on the folks that have joined us this evening. They're still here. They were here earlier. But in case you just showed up on the replay, it's a vagina if it's short enough. So anyway, This brings us around to Grand Rapids. Now, David is one of my favorite reactions to the issue. So here's what happened in Grand Rapids, and I want to bring John's comment back up here, or up now. He made this comment a few minutes ago. I was subbing at a GR school when kid brought a gun to school. Now, for those that don't necessarily know, I'm going to set this up. We have a relatively small in footprint school system compared to where I come from. Grand Rapids has 15 or 13,000 students. Nashville has 80,000 fucking students. Yeah. Nashville has a whole county. Grand Rapids has like one city system inside a county. Those figures, by the way, are going to come up in a few minutes in this conversation. So, what we had on another very busy Wednesday for me, weirdly enough, in the morning at a school, a gun was found in a backpack. And for some reason, I had kind of blown off previous incidents. But this was the fourth time this had happened. The reason I noticed was because it was the Stocking Elementary School. Now, let me explain something to you, ass. Stocking Elementary School is outside my blinds. Every day when I sit at this desk and I work in my remote job, I have a window to the left and a window to the right, and I get to see my neighborhood. And one of the reasons I'm so fucking invested in my neighborhood and looking out for it, one of the reasons I'm such a bulldog of my neighborhood is because I live, work, and play all the fucking time. Right. My kid's 16. He's not at this school. But if a good school can be in my community, it makes my community better. A guy that would one day run for president said something like that back in 2004. So I'm interested in headlines about this school, and I'm out running around. I had a fucking meeting, and I was trying to take another meeting while I was on like my phone in my car and trying to find a place to eat lunch. A lot of shit going on, and then this press conference pops off. Gun found, blah, 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 backpack ban, and I'm like, okay, I'll get home and I'll read about that. I couldn't concentrate on it. And then I read about it, like backpack. Oh. They're literally banning backpacks right the fuck now. So I send it to David. And his general reaction, I think you either verbatim or I'm paraphrasing, said, lol, what?
Right?
Like, David was like, what in the fuck in his general response? And I'm like, yeah, check this shit out. And so here's what led to this. In October, they had a gun brought to a school. And at that point, now that I've had some conversations, I've had some good conversations. I want to give a shout out to Leon Hendricks. He's the senior director of communications at Grand Rapids Public Schools. He's a fantastic human being. He's a real down-to-earth guy. He comes from the media world, the corporate media world. So when he and I talk about dumb school shit, we talk about dumb school shit because we both come from the private sector of marketing and media. So we're able to level each other and be like, I don't get it, man. It's fucked up. I'm not throwing him under the bus. I'm never going to tell anybody any specific thing he's ever criticized, but he's a good dude. And a lot of people in the community have said that they were familiar with his work in media and they're really glad he got his paycheck and his day in the schools. And I'm glad for him. We've had a lot of good conversations. And what he pointed out to me about October was at the point in October that a gun was confiscated at a school, it had been years since that happened. So it was kind of an incremental, like, okay, it happened several years ago. It happened just now. It's gonna once in a while happen. Don't freak out. So you jump in right there, and
I've got something. So literally yesterday, the Marist organization released a poll about gun violence.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to ask people, they wanted to ask Americans what their feeling was about guns. And there was, you got the general thing of like 60% want more, some sort of more gun control, some sort like this and that. But
Yeah.
what was interesting was this. Because it's something that I keep on having to hammer home to conservatives about gun violence. And I say is number one, where are people most likely to encounter gun-related violence? In states and in communities that have the loosest regulation on guns. And as someone who would have had to answer in the affirmative in that poll, are you a victim of gun violence? Yes. Yes, I am.
Yeah, because if you don't know, if you're new, like I know John's just joined us for the first time tonight. David's been robbed at his job in the service industry.
I got robbed and briefly
at AR-15 point.
At AR-15 point, and not only did I get robbed, but then there was the moment of, since I was alone in the establishment, the guy spending several minutes deciding whether or not he wanted witnesses. Well,
that narrows it down, doesn't it?
Right? Like, hey, how many witnesses do I have to worry about?
Oh,
just you.
Just this guy.
Yeah. So I mean, it's it is shocking, and the answer always seems to be where the loosest gun laws are. That's where we see the kids bringing guns to school, the mass shootings. You aren't seeing mass shootings in fucking New York. You aren't seeing mass shootings in fucking Massachusetts. You aren't seeing mass shootings.
You're not even seeing mass shootings in Chicago. As much as people like to beat up on Chicago, which is the closest of the big three to me, it's like one-on-one shit. It's dumb shit. It's gang shit.
I mean, and I also pointed out to this other guy, like even the shootings in Chicago, you have to put them into context, which is Chicago understood that they had a problem with crime. And so for generations, Chicago banned all long guns and all pistols from the city.
And we're also talking about ground zero for organized crime and all the war over prohibition, fucking Elliot Ness. I mean, there's a reason.
Exactly. And Chicago banned those
fucking
guns.
Vacuum.
And then people would be like, "Oh, Chicago still has a violence problem." Well, and I was in a conversation with a conservative individual, and they're like, "Well, because they were trying to explain, like, well, conservatives should just be, wouldn't it be better if we all just like separated and did our own thing over here, and I did my own thing over here?" And I did try and bring up the Civil War.
I mean, and technically, yes. Y'all go ahead and migrate to Florida, and
But I gave the example of Gary, Indiana. Why did Chicago keep on having a gun violence problem even after they banned guns? And I said, because of Gary, Indiana. Because what would happen is if you were in Chicago, you would drive 30 minutes west and hit the Indiana border.
East.
And at the Indiana border
east
was Gary, Indiana.
East.
And in Gary, Indiana,
east
lined up, or drive east, pardon me. Drive 30 minutes east from Chicago.
I get you don't live the geography like I do now, but
whatever, east, west, whatever the fuck.
Shit together, Mr.
But you drive east and you'd hit Gary, Indiana, and lined up along the interstate there at the border of Indiana was gun shop after gun shop after, because they knew exactly what they were doing, right? Yeah. They knew that that gangbangers in Chicago would be like, "Oh, I need a gun. I can't buy one in Chicago, and it's really hard to buy one in Illinois, but I'll be damned if I can't cross the border into Indiana, which has some of the loosest gun laws in the nation, and 30 minutes later, I'm walking out with as many pistols as I want."
It's all
to
part
bring
of
back
that,
into Chicago.
That super highbrow reputation and history attached to Gary. And I think Gary has a lot of potential. I'm not dashing Gary. So
I will.
Back to the Grand Rapids thing. October was it happened, but it hasn't happened for years. We're going to take this in stride, and that's understandable. Because really, I'm not an advocate of leadership just freaking out and losing their fucking minds for no reason.
Like banning backpacks? What?
Well,
that's that. We don't want to have we don't want to have a conversation with kids about, hey, don't bring fucking guns to school, or
we get there. So then you jump into January. Another gun shows up. Oh, okay. All right. We have a problem. At least that's what you would think people would be saying. But apparently nobody had that conversation. So then fast forward to May. And we get 2 guns. Only a couple weeks apart. Show up at schools. John was present for the January incident. A, that sucks. B, thank you for being a fucking adult in the room at the time. So May comes along, we get another one. And then 2 weeks later-ish, we get the one right here down the street. That morning, gun. That afternoon, backpack ban. So after school, something like 3:30, backpack ban. You know, please note the time after everybody had gone home. Except the teachers and the principals that would have to figure out how to make this shit work. 11 p.m. FAQ. 11 p.m. FAQ to clarify all the questions from the community. Questions that included things like, hey, I've been sending my kid to school with a backpack that includes a bulletproof plate. It was a safety device, and now you're taking it away from them.
Yeah.
In a world where Uvalde and Nashville fucking existed.
Which, by the way, what the fuck? What the actual fuck? That we live in right now in America where we are sending kids to school in order to keep them safe because we love guns, because the mass shootings, and I'm gonna come back to this just real fast so that everyone understands about how gun people understand guns. The mass shootings are the point. And I'll tell you why. It's because every time there's a mass shooting, right? Every time there is a mass shooting in which there are multiple casualties at a school, at any place else, what do the gun people ask? What gun was used? And what happens to inventories of that gun, of that particular gun, at gun stores? They go down. They go down quickly. Why do they go down quickly? Because that individual who just committed that mass shooting has just proved the lethality of their weapon of choice. Right? It's made gun nuts excited. How do I put this? Now I'm going to go there. I am going to go there. It makes them hard. It gets them aroused about, yeah, that's a killing gun.
Yep.
That's a killing gun.
Give me that death machine. Give it to me right now with the least amount of background checking and waiting periods.
Right. Look at how many kids it mowed down that quickly.
Yep.
That's a killing gun, and I want it.
That is a glorious implement of death. Bring it to me. So, between 3 and 11 p.m., there was a heap of questioning. Lots of teenage girls asking exactly how many teenage boys they needed to allow to see their entire haul of feminine hygiene implements with no backpack to stash them in. Tons of confusion about where in the fuck are we going to put the massive stacks of shit that it takes to be a high school student in this system or the United States. Brian, that got dark. You damn right it did. So there were lots of questions, and they tried to address these questions at 11 p.m. And the thing I told Mr. Hendricks, because I feel like Leon is a dude from outside this bullshit, like me. And I think chances are people weren't listening to him about a lot of things, because I believe people with a good resume like that are not bringing nothing to the table. But government bureaucrats, especially the ones under the superintendent in this town, who have been able to slide by for decades doing fuck all in most cases to actually lend to their specialty or their supposed specialty. I really feel like those folks don't understand the real world. They don't understand how to think outside the bureaucracy and how to move fast. And if there's any case when you need to move real fucking fast, it's this topic, right? So I've given Leon the benefit of the doubt, and I've told him, like, man, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes trying to get all these dumbasses to come up with the necessary content for an FAQ, only to be able to piss that out at 11 p.m. Like, so many working parents are in bed. All the kids, if the parents are not jackasses, all the kids are in bed. There's nothing that can be done at 11 p.m. to prepare for the next day. So I ended up in a multifaceted war of words on various social media channels with other members of the community because I criticized not specifically the fact that there was a backpack ban, but because it was handled with the rough equivalent of, and I'm sitting here in my Polish neighborhood with my Polish neighbors, I'm about to say, Polish boxing. Like, it was literally fucking like, you know, this fucking bullshit. That was the fucking approach. And all I suggested was, look, it would have been smarter to call school off for the rest of the week, Thursday and Friday, and make the plan. Make it make sense. And yeah, like, I've had different people try to condescend to me because, you know, they know shit and apparently they're fucking geniuses. And I just showed up yesterday. I never thought anything through. They're like, well, you realize it's a really big problem when you close the schools, kids don't eat, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, no fucking shit. I live on the West Side. I'm well fucking aware that we have kids in our community that don't get a meal unless they go to school. But you know what? We have a plan for that because we know how to close the schools because we have, drum roll, Nashville, fucking snow. So we know how to manage a schools closed or remote learning period of time. We can flip those switches, push those buttons, turn those dials, and make that shit happen for 48 hours if necessary. We chose not to. And in my opinion, given the lack of pre-planning, that was the only reasonable option because we plunged everyone into chaos. And, you know, I have problems with the amount of money that the principals in this town make because we got principals making 110, 120, and I was never led to believe that that's what you make. Fuck? I know, David.
Also, I would like to point out that, yes, Michigan gets snow. We get floods.
True.
So,
fair enough.
So, I mean...
so, you know, despite the fact that I would consider our principal at our school paid more than I thought principals were supposed to make, I think she does a great job.
Yeah, I think the highest paid principal in metro schools is something like 120, and they have a doctorate. Like, I think that's the only way you get it above 5 figures in metro public schools.
I think Grand Rapids has yet to run into the practicality of scale. I think the fact that it's such a small system enables overpayment, but that's a separate topic. So
yeah, Slim Jim Overstreet was definitely not being paid 6 figures.
So, whether or not we should be paying our principal what we pay our principal, she didn't fucking deserve the shit that was dropped on her literally in the 11th hour. Like, literally 11th hour. Now, there was another way to approach this, and that would be don't freak out. Let school proceed through the rest of the week and inform the public of what happened and inform the public that come Monday, there's going to be some kind of measure for security. Stay tuned. That was a choice. They didn't make that choice.
I think you're thinking about that. I would argue just for a moment, you may be thinking about this like Metro would do this. Because again, if you're dealing with Metro public schools, the problem is that you have an entire county school system that's completely unified,
Mhm.
right? And so making a snap judgment besides closing schools because of the busing situation is not something that they're going to do very quickly. I would imagine if you only have 80 some odd thousand students, then you imagine that you have a slightly more agility. Like Metro
No,
Public Schools
Nashville
does
has the
not have
80.
agility.
Nashville has the 80. Grand Rapids has 13,000.
Oh, pardon me. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
So if you have 13,000 versus 80,000, that's what I meant.
Well,
Uh,
so the thing though, the thing that this brought
Nashville
into the
is
light,
not nimble. It's not designed to be nimble. When you only have 13,000 students,
right?
I mean that's less than we fit into most of our sports arenas here.
It's true. So here's
And
the thing. Here's the thing that
God
gets
knows
dragged.
it's less than like when the flooding hits, it's less than we evacuate from anywhere.
So here's the thing that this dragged out into the light. The glaring, unacceptable fact that was dragged naked into the sunshine by this event, and this is the real crux of the problem. There was no plan. The core issue here is there was no plan.
Nope.
October happened. You know what? It hasn't happened for several years. Maybe it won't happen again. Oh shit, January happened. And the problem is that in January, nobody, including the senior director of public safety, Larry Johnson, who's been around for 25 fucking years and can't apparently do any better, no one sat down in January and said, all right, y'all, we had this shit happen within 3 months of each other. It's time to make a plan. Because if it happens 3 months from now, I want to be able to have several boxes I can check to have an emergency response to this urgent problem. Obviously, that wasn't the case because on a random Wednesday afternoon a couple of weeks ago, they fucking made shit up as they went and banned backpacks.
Yeah.
A person that's truly a renowned expert who is sought by many in the country for their opinions on fucking safety, which is supposedly Larry Johnson.
No one's asking Metro Public Schools security director for shit.
$180,000 fucking dude.
Maybe
right?
Maybe a blowjob behind the Wendy's. That's probably about it.
And your light bulb's about to go off when I say this ex-cop that now works for the schools for 25 years accomplishing nothing.
I mean, here's the thing.
He didn't have a plan. He didn't have a plan. Any rational person, my ass, for like 110, would have done that job. And in January, I would have said, hold the phone, sit the fuck down. We're making a plan. Because if this shit happens again, I'm throwing the hammer at this problem. And we need to figure out what that hammer looks like. What metal is the hammer made of? What is the wood in the hammer's handle? And how many people are going to hold the hammer when we drop said hammer? And he didn't make a fucking plan. And that's the main fucking problem.
And you know, honestly, in this day and age, that is somewhat inexcusable. The only excuse that I offer Grand Rapids public schools is this: when you've only got 13,000 students, you imagine that, again, smaller companies constantly imagine, and I'll put this into economic terms, smaller companies and smaller organizations constantly imagine that just by virtue of their size, they're more agile and nimble than larger ones. The truth is, however, in many cases, because of the restraint on their resources, right? Granted, they don't have to change 60 things. They just have to change 5 things, maybe. But the problem is that the resources that they have available to change those 5 things are drastically reduced.
Right.
But they imagine themselves, because they're smaller, that they're more nimble and that they can kind of dance around these problems.
Yeah.
I would imagine the same mentality applies to a smaller school district.
I think you're right.
Or a smaller organization, which is they imagine that, oh, since we're smaller, since we're more close knit, since you know, and for those of you in Grand Rapids, understand when Nashville Metro Public Schools wants to do something, there's multiple massive buildings around the city dedicated to public schools. We have what was once a full high school at Pearl Cone, which is nothing but administrative offices. We have another whole building that was once an elementary school, a massive elementary school at Bradford, that is dedicated to nothing but administrative offices.
Yeah.
We have multiple buildings around the city that are
Bransford.
dedicated to what?
Bransford.
What did I say? Bradford?
You said Bradford. That only tweaks me because we have a Bradford here, I think. Anyway.
But anyway, so like we have
I used
multiple
to live in relative proximity to Bransford, and I thought it was amusing.
we don't even have a central building where we can fit all of our all of Metro Public Schools administrative staff.
Right.
So trying to get them all on the same page is at least a week-long process, if not more.
Well, and the thing that happened here was getting everybody on the same page was indeed a week-long process, and it all played out right the fuck in public, and it was wretched. So yours truly ends up on like 2 different interviews with the same news channel, and apparently, had I been watching my public Facebook public Facebook page, I had a message from every news agency in this city. If I'd been paying attention to that, if I'd been on my game like I should have been, but I forget about that fucking bullshit way that Facebook messages end up in the trash bin by default, there would have been an interview with me about urging for a citywide sit out of not sending your kids to school those 2 days. I would have been covered on every channel had I paid attention like I should have. Now,
how many did you get anyway?
It was just the one, because that guy. So the first guy messaged Jesse, and he's like, "Hey, I noticed that you're of the opinion," and she's like, "No, I'm not your person, but I do live with your person." And so they came and they did an interview on the porch. We talked about the fact that the school should have been closed. But then there was the thing this past Saturday, which was the public forum on safety in the schools, which to their credit had been planned in advance. But I would have spent my time and energy planning a response before planning a fucking town hall. But the town hall became all about the backpack ban and the recent events, and I spoke at that town hall.
By the way, is there still a backpack
having a
ban?
conversation with the news after that?
By the way, I having not being in Grand Rapids, is there still a backpack ban?
Yes, it's till the end of the school year, which is like a week and a half away.
So what? Everyone's hauling their shit in fucking grocery bags? I don't understand.
Well, see, that's something that most people still don't understand, because they were making the rules up as they went, and they were coming up with random bullshit. Different schools were interpreting their random bullshit in different random bullshit ways. So ultimately, the students end up just carrying stacks of shit around all day. So our son goes like into school with a stack of fucking textbooks and random shit. Then he comes out with a stack of textbooks and random shit. Supposedly, he was assigned a locker like at the last minute in this overnight chaos that our principal was inexcusably subjected to having to deal with. I know. And so, like, it is what it is. So the icing on the cake is that this renowned expert that we've been employing for fucking 25 years, that's apparently entirely ineffective. He's also the chief of staff. You'll love this. And the teachers pervasively feel like there's a culture of retribution when they give feedback that criticizes the leadership. So Larry Johnson has basically 2 major problems. They are both his job title. He is chief of staff and senior director of security, or whatever the fuck, public safety. Oh, also his wife is a lieutenant in the school security force. So there's a ton of bullshit. A ton of bullshit. I know. I see your little side eye. I see your nepotism nerves are tweaking the edge of your HR conflict nerves. I see it. So
what?
I know. Johnson makes 180, his wife makes 80, and they do it all on the school's dime, on the taxpayer's dime. Whole household income.
So he's her boss?
Uh-huh. Wee! I mean, I got nothing to say. Like, you can't. What is the response to that realization other than what the fuck? So, yeah. And here's the thing
Bullshit.
that kills me. This is the second largest. No, second largest. I think it's the second largest city in the state. Number 2 most desirable place to live in the state. It's not like Grand Rapids is nothing. But there's some Mayberry shit that goes on here that goes unquestioned until some asshole walks in the room and starts saying the shit that nobody wants to hear who is in power. And I'm fine with that. I'm good with that. That's my niche, apparently. But it's fucking insane that we have to have some of these conversations, and it's unacceptable because some of it's just silly, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff in this town. It's just silly. And I come along and I question shit, and it's like, oh, all right, whatever. That's the way. Whatever. That's silly.
I just want to point out that
But there ain't nothing silly about the lives and safety of children, teachers, administrators, everybody in the school.
That
This
is
not a fucking game.
I gotta say, like that level of nepotism, though, coming from a Tennessean's point of view, that is some Bloughton County level bullshit.
Like I said, Mayberry, man.
Here's the thing: Bloughton County has like 5,000 people. It's impossible not to employ your fucking neighbor because they're all fucking related.
Right.
All of you.
There's not
all of you are related.
There's not a cousin in that county that isn't married. Anyway,
literally,
John says, "Be Grand Rapids nice, West Michigan nice, Midwest nice," and that's the thing. By asking,
actually, I want to put out another poll. Even West Michigan nice doesn't like West Michigan nice.
That's the best part. I have yet to talk. Even in my conversation with Leon after that meeting on Saturday, he pointed out, he's like, you're not West Michigan nice, and that turns some people off. And you know what? My mantra since I learned what it was fuck West Michigan nice. That is some toxic and
West Michigan. Listen,
useless
I live
shit.
in the South, and bless your heart, we all understand the subtext, which is go fuck yourself. Yep. I hope it hurts when you die.
Yeah,
I don't understand why.
And West Michigan nice is bless your heart without the willingness to say bless your heart. That's
right. That's the entire point. Like, we all understand what it means, which is I hope it hurts when you die. Literally every fiber of my being wishes nothing but suffering upon you and all that you love. I don't understand why we can't get past. Like, this is what we do. We say nice things, but what they actually mean
is fuck
die.
Yeah. So the thing that I've found interesting is the sheer volume of idiots who I've interacted with on this subject, where they're like, there's nothing the schools can do. The guns are out there. You can't blame them for the gun. No, I don't blame them for the guns. I don't blame them for the guns. I blame them for their inept response to this reality.
I'll blame the state for the guns. I'll blame the state. I'll blame the Republican legislature for the guns. I'll do that.
And I'll give you another feather in that cap, David. You can blame directly. You can directly blame Michigan State legislative Republicans, because we passed a bill for safe storage laws, and those motherfuckers voted down immediate effect. So we had to wait till March until that's a law.
Now, one of the things that I love pointing out is, so Australia is one of my classic examples. So Australia had one mass shooting. And they told everyone, like, listen, it's Australia. Listen, we understand. Everything on this continent is designed to kill human life.
Plants, animals, rocks. It's all deadly.
We tried to fight a war against a flightless bird, and we lost. With machine guns, and we lost. Right? We lost. So we get it. We really do. But here's the thing. If you need to have a gun in your house, which you probably do in Australia, I don't know, it's just got to be in a safe. That's it. It doesn't have to be in a combo safe. It doesn't have to be in like a punch button. You can have it be stupid, easy to break biometric. shove your thumb up against that fucking motherfucker like your kid's going to when he blows his own fucking brains out, and you too can own a gun.
Sure. Yeah.
And you know what happened in Australia? Did mass shootings go up? Did crime go up? No, it didn't. It went down. It went down. Because the thing is, people said, okay, you're walking around Sydney fucking Australia with a goddamn fucking rifle. What the fuck are you doing, you cockmongering, cum guzzling gutter slut? I wish.
Well, that's ultimately, we all know it's not the school's fault. We all know the backpack ban is not the fault of any given principal, faculty, or staff, or student. Everybody fucking knows that. The morons that insist on making that the distraction argument, first, I suspect them of being right-wing gun nuts that are just trying to find a way to blur the whole issue. Second, they're just fucking idiots. And the reality is, this whole problem centers on the response and the irresponsibility. And it's the irresponsible part that really gets me. You should have a plan. At I don't remember it's 9 times the school superintendent makes 9 times the median income.
Plan is really beside.
Of the
I'm going to argue slightly. The plan is beside the point. The problem is the fact that as a society, as an organization, you knew that this was going to, like, for instance, Tennessee knew as gospel truth when they instituted permanentless carry, when they did all this shit, that there were going to be guns in places where there shouldn't be guns, right? And the entire state had to rearrange itself, and has consistently had to rearrange itself around the fact that we're going to die, right? You're going, like, there's people with guns, and the gun fetishists in the Republican Party enjoy that fact. They take pleasure in the fact that you will die by that gun, so that they can know what gun has more firepower. But we all had to modify our reality around that. The issue is the fact that the guns are out there freely, and the Republicans said, okay, yes, have more guns, have more death, have more bullets, like everything that you need to facilitate death so that we can enjoy ourselves while we watch people die, and take pleasure in now owning a more lethal piece of equipment that makes us feel better about ourselves, despite the utterly shriveledness of our cock.
I was really hoping you get around to the penis thing.
I was getting there. It just, I wanted to lay it out as part of an argument, instead of just my general pejorative.
You wanted to lay it out, which is a privilege that you enjoy that the average
exactly, right?
AR-15 jacked up loud muffler pickup truck fucker doesn't enjoy, and we get that, David. We understand what you're saying.
Like, seriously,
we hear you, ladies.
Still COVID free. Yes. Ivermectin
No
makes your cock
cooties,
shrink. It's
no
proven.
guns, no highly suspended American truck products. Ladies and gentlemen, David McDaniel. So anyway, yes, there's an overall social issue.
Those aren't truck balls on the back of my car. Those are mine.
It's just me. So we understand there's an overall social issue. We understand there's an overall problem. We understand there's slow-moving fucking state laws. But there's absolutely no excuse in the book for career supposed professionals. And the icing on this cake is they've brought in a consultancy to help them evaluate security around the district. And the thing that pisses me off there is, why in the fuck are we paying a supposed expert and a whole department of people, including his fucking wife, to be experts on this shit? And they need to hire a member of essentially a military industrial complex. It's insane. And so the conversation is far from over. And no, not all of us are being West Michigan nice about that shit. So, I don't feel comfortable. I'm not loving it. I just basically, I go with the hoping for the best theory that most American parents have to in any American high school. And there are 2 grades left, and I hope everything goes fine. And then I can just be a community member observing this shit show and trying to have whatever effect on it I can through voting and whatever else we can do. We could go down a rabbit hole that we don't have time for tonight about the elected officials on the school board and the fact that they don't really have the guts to give the orders. There are a couple of them that do. One of them is a friend of mine here in the neighborhood, and I'm hoping that we get more like him. And I'm trying to avoid having to do the hard work necessary to become part of that, because it's not fucking worth it. We only pay those people $400 a month, which is not okay and needs to be higher.
Huh?
Especially, yeah, the school board is making $400 a month.
I mean, I guess for 13,000. Again, for our Michiganders still tuning in, Metro School Board pays significantly.
Yeah, it's
more.
like 19 grand a year or something. Higher? Now I'm going to look it up. So, Google. Nashville School Board pay. Of course, the director of schools makes $285, which is a little bit obscene.
That went up
Do what?
in Nashville. That went up.
No, it's currently $285. Apparently, maybe it's going up in the future.
Yeah, it's going up in the future. I think they're slated for $315.
God damn, it's just so over the top. It's really not okay. Here, it's like $240, which blows my mind if you think about the scale of the difference between what's going on. And that was part of the conversation we were having.
You also have to remember that Nashville also has semi-control over its electric company, which also pays an obscene amount of money.
Yeah. See, the thing that a lot of people don't understand is in Nashville, the mayor is not the top paid executive. He should be by my book, but he's not.
No, it's the head of Nashville Electric Service.
No, it's not. It's the
it's not?
president of the fucking Music City Center. That's the guy that makes.
That guy.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's new and has a whole lot of random fucked upness to it. I mean,
well, but the bottom line is he makes $485, and he kept making that during COVID when his business did jack fuck.
Yeah, because that's what we do in Nashville is we just keep on paying people for
let me be very clear. Like if you're the head of an enormous convention center in a top world destination and you pull down $500,000 based on performance bonuses, I don't have a problem. But when COVID comes along, your ass needs to sit at home and take like 120 and get by.
Dude, I will not kid you. From when you were last here till now, you should drive down Broadway. It's different.
Is it weird? Is it Vegas? It's all the way Vegas.
No, it's not. It's not that it's all the way Vegas. It's that you definitely drive through a straight up concrete canyon now. In and out of town. For those of you who aren't familiar, like it used to be like once you were out of like a certain like 14, 15, 20 block radius of downtown, you were out of the shadow of the high rises. That has expanded about another.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Where like
so
in all directions about another 20 square blocks.
So I'm aware of that because
high rises.
I have a client who has a development in Goodlettsville, and for a year and a half or so, I've been working with them on updates to the offering memo for their subdivision they're trying to sell properties in.
Yeah.
And the conversation I had like last week, they checked in with me for a new draft because they've done some changes and they've completed construction on the basic infrastructure. So now they're dealing with a subdivision that's like a loop street that has all the power and water infrastructure. It's literally ready. Pick a lot, pay the money, build a fucking house. Like it's ready.
In Goodlettsville.
That's the caveat. It's in Goodlettsville. So there's a lot of song and dance in the marketing.
Again, for our Michigander viewers, Goodlettsville, it would be like driving from Grand Rapids to Lansing almost.
No, it's not that bad. I can give you a better analogy. Goodlettsville would be like telling people it's the it's the conflation that is the thing. Like when you've got a development in Goodlettsville, but you're marketing it as Nashville, you've basically got a development in Hudsonville and marketing it as Grand Rapids. That's really the best analogy to
Okay,
that.
I'll,
Except Hudsonville's a lot
trust.
more successful than Goodlettsville at this point, to be honest with you.
I'll trust in your native, but it's a long ass fucking drive from Goodlettsville to fucking Nashville. It is a long ass fucking drive.
John points out he's thrown a link in here, and this is worth talking about, but I think I'd rather wait until we have an actual guest that is a person of color with hair that can be discriminated against. Talking about the 5 legislators that voted no on the anti-discrimination bill for hair discrimination. I heard about this morning, and we've done a thing at the state level to include protection against hair discrimination.
Okay.
Which is cool because a lot of people have been fucked with because they have very black braids. That's the white guy way to explain
or afros or
yeah, right. And so I'm glad we did that, but there were some fuckers that decided to just stick it to the darkies again, and we should know their names. So that's a good suggestion, man. Thank you for that. And that was a quote, by the way, not my own sentiments. Or paraphrase, I guess, because quote would be technically defaming these racist bastards.
Hold on. Like you all had to have a moment about voting on hair.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, even Tennessee allows
David. Remember, it's been 40 years since the Democrats dominated. There's a lot of heinous.
Do you all have black people?
I mean,
I know you have black people because Detroit exists.
We have a lot of wonderful black people in our community that are incredible contributors. But these.
I mean, I'm trying to imagine like the chaos that would exist in a southern state if they were to try and mandate hair, because they'd burn the fucking city down.
I mean,
like all the fucking way.
I don't think this kind of bill could have ever been entertained in most of the Tennessee and adjoining states.
Because they'd burn literally. I don't think you understand. They'd burn the whole fucking city down without hesitation. Like no.
I appreciate the progress that happens here.
Cracker gonna die.
So yeah, it's nice to see the progress. I don't think you would be able to get a bill like that through Tennessee. Honestly, I'm surprised they haven't used hair discrimination.
What the fuck would happen to Memphis? Oh my god, or Atlanta? Jesus, man, are you fucking Joseph?
But honestly, David, like in all seriousness, in those places, there is workplace discrimination based on hair in Memphis and Atlanta, and that's why we tackled it up here.
I mean, but the thing is, like, if you try to pass a bill against people having afros or dreads, or
no, you're going at the wrong direction. There has been discrimination based on hair, so we passed civil rights protection for hair.
Oh, okay.
Because we had to, because racists. That's what happened. And there were 5 motherfuckers that somehow thought that the hill they should die on was dreadlocks and braids.
Again, like I'm trying to imagine like the very concept of like even like, yes, is there some discrimination in Memphis and Atlanta about hair? Maybe.
Google that tonight, because it's a big deal. I've read a lot of shit about kids being like told they can't walk at graduations because they have dreads. Various workplace issues all over the fucking country, dude.
Well,
this is one of those white guy insulation things that we don't have.
If you're in Mississippi, yeah, I get it.
No, all over. You got to look that shit up. It's apparently a bigger problem than the average white dude.
I understand, like, white people states that have a lot of white people that don't have black people banning that. I understand, like, that makes perfect fucking sense, but Memphis exists. I don't like if Tennessee were to ever like have like some sort of like active discrimination against afros and dreads. Again, they just burn everything the fuck down.
Let me give you a stat that I just pulled up just to give you a perspective. Because I mean, honestly, I'm
That's
not
all.
shaming. I'm not shaming you for not
No, that's
knowing
fine.
this.
They're like, feel free to shame me. I
No,
I
because
have no
white
honor or
dudes don't
dignity
know
left.
this shit. But around 70% of schools' dress codes mention hair. 20% forbid afros. 20% forbid braids.
And those are all in Indiana and Idaho.
And apparently Michigan historically, but
or
like,
apparently Michigan historically. I'm trying to imagine like Memphis City schools trying to function with no one with like afros or dreads.
yeah,
or
but
braids.
the fact is that it's not about the school part. It's about the job discrimination and that kind of shit. Like it's a big thing.
Well, I mean, here's the thing: we all know
Apparently,
FedEx.
African American women have the highest instances of hair discrimination. I mean,
Well,
it's nuts.
again,
And you know what's
FedEx.
extra nuts about it? Like, and I know that we're pushing up on our time here, but what's extra
we're
nuts
so
about it
far fucking over. Well, whatever.
is
Fuck
some
it.
of the times that I am the most happy to see a black woman in a position of being noticed or successful. One of the first things I notice is like, and that hair, good for you. That's one of my favorite things right now with our city commission is we have women that are elected to positions of power, and they have, in my opinion, some of the most beautiful black woman hair going on that dais, and I'm so fucking happy about it.
Again, I live in the South. There's black woman hair everywhere.
Yeah, but what you don't do is go to that annual review to try to get a raise wearing that hair, and that's been the problem.
Well, I mean that may actually be a thing, but I feel like if companies, well, with the exception of Oracle, which is new to the city, and I have somewhat vague hopes that a nascent volcano emerges from beneath their headquarters.
Wait. But David, I don't know what your feelings on Oracle are about, but Oracle didn't ask the city to bend over and give them a bunch of tax breaks.
The Oracle is also owned by an individual who tried to back the January 6th insurrection.
Yeah, I got nothing.
That
cancels out.
Yeah,
That cancels out. I can't proceed down that route. But I will say, when John Cooper was running initially for mayor, and he called me because he was told I had some shit that I wanted to share if he wanted to listen.
Oh yeah,
and I told him the main thing is if you are elected mayor of Nashville, stop fucking negotiating like you're fucking Birmingham.
that is true.
Anybody that gets a permit to build a damn thing in Nashville, you did them a favor with the fucking permit. They don't need any breaks.
By the way, I don't know if you've heard the bullshit, which we may have to get into this at some other time, but the mayoral shit kicking has begun.
I mean, I know it's a massive race with every nut coming out of the woodwork and a few great people.
Christ. Gingrich is seriously like fucking harassing people.
Who?
You right? Uh-huh.
What?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Who is that?
Right?
No relation, I hope.
Who the fuck knows? I don't understand why Yarborough isn't literally just flopping his cock down.
He kind of is
smacking everyone, be like, "Hi."
I mean, to me,
I'm
the
Jeff
only
Yarborough.
two valuable, or the only three valuable candidates from way up here that I'm aware of are Wiltshire, Yarborough.
Wiltshire is trying.
Wiltshire, Yarborough, and O'Connell. Even though, in my opinion, Freddie O'Connell sold out years ago, lost all of his teeth.
No one gives a shit about O'Connell. Wiltshire is trying to like generate a bunch of buzz. I don't.
Cato dropped out, so there goes that one because I was really into that idea.
I don't understand why Yarborough isn't just like laying down his fucking like massive python and just being like, "Hi, I'm Jeff Yarborough."
He kind of is. I tell you what, the next show we have together, we should probably run down a little bit of that Nashville race.
We
So
should, because it's
speaking
insane.
of-
The number of people running.
oh,
What's her
always
name?
it's always nuts because you only have to have 25
Schultz.
fucking signatures.
What's her name? Schultz, whatever her name is.
See, you're naming so many people I've never heard of. It's fascinating. We'll have to talk about this one.
It's fine.
All right, so here's the deal, folks. What we're doing, we're working on some changes, which we still have to plan. But apparently next week, my man is busy.
I gotta be gone. Actually, let me clarify that. I have to be doing inventory until 4:00 in the morning.
Oh,
I have to hop in my car, drive as fast as I can back to my house, get in a cab, and drive and ride the cab to the plane so that I can go to my sister's wedding. I will try and set something up for Wednesday of the following week or something. We're going to work on it. But
so we're entertaining a new thing where we would split up into some video-based content, hopefully with a guest to join our discussion or be featured with something they want to talk about. And then we're going to start digging into the podcast realm. We've talked about some cool ideas for how to split up the content. So stay tuned on all that. Next week, it is kind of technically a holiday week. We're going to talk about it, but don't be surprised if we skip next week and come at you in June with some new plans.
Yeah, sorry.
We're going to talk about that behind the scenes, and we're going to figure it out. But hey, congrats on the or congrats by proxy on the sister's wedding thing. That's cool. Which is that, DC?
Richmond.
Okay, all right.
She's marrying a Federal Reserve folks. So yes, I will now be officially tied into the cabal.
Just in time for that to go one of two ways.
Right?
Well, we got married, and then the entire global economy took a shit because of the Republicans. And I haven't seen him in weeks, but I'm told of a warlord on Capitol Hill that uses the same screen name as he does. So anyway.
That'll be me.
Yes, that's true. You'll be there. You'll be there at the right time. Oh, boy. Oh.
David has seized the Capitol.
Help us all.
God,
help us all. All right. Hey, this has been a fun one. Thank you for engaging in the mostly Grand Rapids school rant. But thank you for bringing all those great topics to the table tonight on my overloaded day. Thank all of you out there for hanging out and joining us, throwing in comments and questions. We thrive off of the interaction because it gives us a little something extra to talk about. Remember, we do this for free. This shit is just us exercising.
No one is ever sponsoring us.
Given rights. Anyway, we appreciate you all. And with that, we say good night.
Good evening.
And
good
luck.